On the eve of the final ballet competition, a tragic car accident left me paralyzed. My parents, who once saw me as their pride and joy, abandoned me, calling me a burden. Just as I was sinking into despair, Sebastian Stanton, the man I had secretly loved for years, came into my life. He promised he would stay by my side forever. 3 years into our marriage, after countless rounds of IVF, I finally became pregnant. Sebastian was so thrilled he had tears in his eyes. But moments later, I overheard him talking to a friend. First, you deliberately caused Clara Sawyer's car accident so she couldn't compete in the finals. Now you're having her carry your and Felicity's child through IVF. Aren't you afraid she'll find out the truth? Besides, do you have any idea how risky childbirth is for a paralyzed woman? She could die. Sebastian sighed, his voice laced with a grim resolve. Fifi wants a child, but her lifelong dream is to become an international dancer. I can't bear to let her give up her career for a pregnancy, and I won't let anyone stand in her way. Clara may be paralyzed, but her uterus is still functional. Let's just call it the last thing she can do for Fifi. 1. Just outside the door, I sat in my wheelchair, my face ashen, my body trembling uncontrollably. I couldn't believe it. The source of all my suffering was the man I loved most, the man who slept beside me. The conversation inside continued. What's the plan after the baby is born? With Felicity's proud and stubborn personality, there's no way she'll let her child call another woman Mom. After the birth, I'll tell Clara the baby didn't make it. Felicity will take the child to the US to raise. In a few years, when the child is older, we'll bring them back and say we adopted them from an orphanage. You know my parents won't accept my relationship with Felicity because we're nominally brother and sister. No matter how much we love each other, we were never destined to be together openly. The other man finally understood. No wonder you had a vasectomy before the wedding, so you were planning this from the start. You even claimed you had a low sperm count and made Clara go through hundreds of IVF treatments. You don't plan on ever having children with her, do you? Sebastian shook his head, his tone firm. I will only ever have children with Fifi. No other woman is worthy of bearing my child. Tears were already streaming down my face. I struggled to stifle a sob, desperate not to make a sound. Perhaps feeling Sebastian had gone too far, his friend's voice held a note of pity. Sebastian, don't you think this is too cruel to Clara? She's paralyzed, and now you're taking her child away. How can she possibly stay with your family? Your mother was already furious that you married a cripple. Have you thought about her at all? Are you trying to drive her to her death? Sebastian was silent for a moment before speaking. I'll convince my mother not to give her a hard time anymore. In the future, I'll treat her well. I'll spend the rest of my life making up for the harm I've caused her. Hearing this, a wave of nausea rose in my stomach. I spun my wheelchair around and rushed into the nearby bathroom, dry heaving violently over the toilet. The pregnancy had ruined my appetite, and I hadn't eaten all day. My stomach was empty, so I could only bring up sour bile. After a long while, I slowly straightened up. In the mirror, my reflection showed a woman with lifeless eyes, her face as pale as paper, completely drained of color. I once thought I was lucky. After the car accident stole my legs and my dream, after being abandoned by my own parents, there was still someone who stood by me without hesitation. I never imagined that the architect of my ruin was the very person I thought was my salvation. I turned on the faucet, splashed cold water on my face, and tried to clear my head. A moment later, I used my phone to book an abortion for the next day at a private clinic. Then, I sent a message to my mentor in Germany. Professor, I've made up my mind. I'll accept your offer to go to Germany for rehabilitation, and I have another favor to ask. 2. A month ago, my mentor had messaged me, saying he'd found a specialist who could treat my legs, offering a glimmer of hope that I could stand and return to the stage. But at the time, all I could think was that rehabilitation would take years, and Sebastian was under immense family pressure to have a child to secure his position. To save Sebastian from disappointment, I was willing to give up my chance to walk again. Now, it seemed my self-righteous sacrifice was nothing but a joke. A short while later, Sebastian burst into the room, his face etched with anxiety. He breathed a sigh of relief when he saw me. My wife, why are you hiding in here all alone? Ever since we found out I was pregnant, Sebastian had become even more doting. He worked from home and, unless it was an emergency, never left my sight. If I so much as coughed, he would drop his work to stay home and care for me, hovering nervously, terrified something might go wrong. Now I knew. All he cared about was the seed in my belly, his and Felicity's. Sebastian strode over and took my hands, his face tense with worry. "Why do you look so pale? Are you not feeling well? I'll take you to the hospital." He moved to lift me into his arms and carry me out. I raised a hand to stop him, shaking my head. "I'm fine. It's just morning sickness." His hand moved to my stomach. "You be a good little one in there," he cooed. "Stop making trouble, or I'll have to punish you when you come out. My wife, you're working so hard." Watching his flawless, heartfelt performance, I felt a chill seep deep into my bones. After a long silence, I asked a question that came to me instinctively. "Who do you think the baby will look like when it's born? You or me?" Sebastian answered without a second thought. "Like Fifi." At his words, my gaze locked onto him. Realizing his slip, he gave a dry laugh, trying to cover his embarrassment. "You know what they say, babies often end up looking more like their aunts than their parents." A sarcastic smile touched my lips, but I didn't reply. How could I have been so foolish to believe he and Felicity were simply brother and sister? The photos on his office desk, his email password being Fifi's birthday, his old phone wallpaper, it was all Felicity. But now that I knew the truth, how could I possibly let them get what they wanted? Sebastian, oblivious to my turmoil, started pushing my wheelchair toward the door. "Let's go downstairs. Everyone's waiting." 3. Perhaps because his wish had been granted, Sebastian threw a lavish party at our home to celebrate Felicity winning a ballet competition. He never even considered how I, his wife and a former dancer myself, would feel seeing this. But why would he care? He had orchestrated all of this, after all. As soon as we got downstairs, I saw that the living room was decorated with artistic portraits of Felicity, her trophy displayed prominently. Seeing us, Felicity, draped in a couture gown, glided toward us with a radiant smile. "Clara, I'm so jealous. We're the same age and you already have a baby on the way." "When the baby is born, can I be the godmother?" I smiled back. "Sure, you can have the baby for all I care. You're all one family after all." Hearing this, Sebastian's expression flickered. He tapped my head lightly. "Don't be ridiculous. That would just mess up the family tree, wouldn't it?" A doting voice came from behind us. "If you like babies so much, go find a man and have one of your own." Felicity immediately went to Alina Stanton and linked arms with her, pouting playfully. "Just because I don't give birth doesn't mean I can't have a child of my own. Maybe I'll have one to show you by next year," she said, glancing pointedly at my stomach. Sebastian's eyes lingered on Felicity for a moment. "I'll go get you two something to eat. You can chat for a bit." Alina looked at Felicity with feigned exasperation, but her expression soured when her gaze fell on me. She frowned. "Even with crippled legs, you can't just stay put, coming to a crowded place while pregnant. You're the girl even her own parents couldn't stand and abandoned. I really don't know what Sebastian ever saw in you, insisting on marrying a cripple and bringing you home." Alina had never liked me. Her son, her pride and joy, had rejected the heiress she had chosen for him and instead married a disabled woman who couldn't even care for herself, making Alina a laughingstock among her society friends. She had never given me a moment's peace. But because she was Sebastian's mother, I had always tolerated her deliberate provocations. After all, I was the one who had caused her to lose face. And after all, we both loved the same man. I didn't want to make things difficult for Sebastian, but now I was done being patient. "You should ask your son that. You should ask him what he saw in me." The atmosphere instantly grew tense. Alina was about to erupt in anger, but Felicity whispered a few words to her, and her expression softened slightly. "Clara, don't be angry," Felicity cooed. "Mom's just blunt, don't take it to heart. There are so many people here today because of me. How about this? You always wanted this award, didn't you? If you hadn't dropped out, it might have been yours. Here, take my new trophy as an apology." Felicity, gathering her skirt, gracefully walked over to the table, picked up the trophy, and offered it to me as if she were giving alms. For, if I hadn't had that car accident, Felicity would never have had a chance at this award. My mentor once said I was born for the dance. Back then, Felicity had been so jealous of my talent that she once put nails in my ballet shoes, sneering at me. What right does a farmer's daughter have to dance? Even then, I had danced through the pain and, with my sheer talent, delivered a stinging slap to her face. I glanced at the trophy she held, my words heavy with meaning. I never covet things that belong to others. Eleanor, seeing this, seethed with anger. She pulled Felicity away. Is she even worthy of it? You're both dancers. You're a renowned artist now, and she can't even take care of herself. I feel disgusted just looking at someone like that. Why are you even talking to her? She then pulled Felicity toward the other side of the room, leaving me alone. Nearby, some people who had witnessed the scene began to whisper. I don't know what her secret is, but she's got the Stanton heir wrapped around her finger even after being crippled. You have to admit she's got some serious skills. Isn't that the truth? That's what I call being resourceful. Talk about shameless. Even in her state, she's desperate to give the Stantons a child through IVF. 5. I ignored them and made my way toward the bedroom alone. As I neared the elevator, my peripheral vision caught a glimpse of Sebastian and Felicity not far away, embracing without a care in the world. My dear Sebastian, Felicity murmured, seeing Clara pregnant makes me want to cry. I'm so sad I can't experience being a mother myself to feel a baby grow for 10 months. Sebastian patted her back comfortingly. Silly girl, what are you talking about? This is your child, and you have your own dreams. Childbirth is so risky, I'd never let you go through that. But will Clara be willing to give me the baby? What if she finds out the truth? Sebastian's expression turned cold. Don't worry, she'll never know. And even if she does, what can she do? A woman who's lost her legs, where could she possibly go without the Stanton family? Felicity's voice was thick with tears. Thank you, my dear Sebastian. I was once so grateful that Mother adopted me and I became your sister, but now I hate that status more than anything because it means we can't be together openly. She sniffled, her eyes turning red. But don't worry, you will be the only man for me in this life. Hearing this, Sebastian began to gently wipe away her tears, and then, unable to restrain his desire any longer, he leaned in and kissed her on the lips. They were lost in the moment, kissing passionately, unwilling to part. The sight was like a sharp blade plunging into my chest. But I already knew, didn't I? I thought back on our 3 years of marriage. Sebastian had only ever kissed my forehead. He had never kissed me on the lips, let alone anything more intimate. A self-mocking smile crossed my face. I pulled out my phone and took a picture of the scene before turning my wheelchair and returning to the bedroom. It was past 10 o'clock by the time Sebastian returned to the bedroom. The maid said you didn't eat much tonight. That won't do. He walked to the bedside with a glass of warm milk. Here, drink this. As he approached, I could smell the cloying, intense scent of rose perfume on him. I turned my head away and closed my eyes, saying nothing. Seeing this, Sebastian had no choice but to put the milk down. After washing up, he lay down beside me. 6. The next morning, Sebastian woke up early as usual to make breakfast, thoughtfully setting out the dishes. Come and eat. Don't you have a checkup with the doctor later? Today was supposed to be my first prenatal checkup. Before I could answer, his phone rang. Sebastian answered it, and his calm expression instantly turned to one of extreme anxiety. A sprain, is it serious? I'll be right there. As he spoke, he quickly grabbed his jacket and started for the door. But he stopped, as if suddenly remembering something, and looked at me with a troubled expression. My wife, Fifi, sprained her ankle. I'm going to go check on her. I'll be back soon. I looked up at him, my voice even. If you have something to do, go. I'll have the driver take me. After all, if he came with me, I wouldn't be able to go through with the abortion. With my permission, Sebastian left without a backward glance. Looking at the food on the table, I lost my appetite. I called the driver to take me to the hospital. Because I had an appointment, the abortion procedure was quick, finished in less than half an hour. I asked the doctor to help me preserve what was removed and scheduled a courier to deliver it to a specific address at a designated time. Since Sebastian and Felicity wanted this child so badly, I would give it back to them. As luck would have it, I ran into Sebastian right after I picked up my report. He was gently supporting Felicity. He looked shocked to see me. My wife, I thought I told you to wait for me to come back and take you to the hospital. I ignored him, my gaze fixed on Felicity. Felicity wore a triumphant smirk. Clara, I bumped my leg this morning. I was worried something might be wrong, so I called Sebastian. You know how important legs are for a dancer like me. Sebastian let go of Felicity and knelt beside me, his voice soft and gentle. "You just finished your checkup, right? How's the baby?" He reached for the report in my hand. I instinctively clutched the paper, not wanting him to see it. Just then, a nurse called out from a distance. "Is a family member of Felicity Stanton here?" Sebastian immediately stood up and walked over. Felicity followed him. Watching them, I laughed at myself. What was I expecting? His reaction when he found out I had an abortion, but it was for the best that he didn't see. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to leave so easily. I steered my wheelchair toward the hospital exit. As I fumbled with my phone to call the driver, I saw a new social media post from Felicity. "The best man in the world to me." The accompanying photo was of Sebastian carefully examining the bruise on her leg. The comments flooded in. "If I didn't know he was your brother, I'd swear he was your boyfriend. He spoils you so much. My brother and I fight all the time. I guess all the good brothers belong to other people." I silently liked the post. Then I commented, "He certainly is a good brother." After posting, not caring if anyone would misunderstand, I simply turned off my phone. 7 back home, I received a call from my mentor. "Clara, your new identity documents are ready. Thank you, Professor. I'll come to you as soon as my current information is erased." Just as I hung up, Sebastian pushed the door open. "Who are you going to see?" I composed myself and answered casually. "A friend. She just got back from abroad." Sebastian walked over to me, wrapped his arms around my waist, and rested his chin on my shoulder. "I'm sorry I couldn't be with you for the checkup today, but why didn't you wait for us to go home together when you saw us?" I said nothing, gently freeing myself from his embrace. Sebastian continued, "Where did you put the checkup report? Let me see it. I can't wait to see what the baby looks like." The report was already in shreds. I didn't want to get into it. Instead, I looked him straight in the eye and asked a different question. "Are you and Felicity really brother and sister?" The moment I said it, Sebastian's face grew tense. "What are you talking about? If we're not brother and sister, what else could we be?" "Oh," I said, nodding thoughtfully. "Anyone who didn't know better would think you were her husband." As if I had hit a nerve, Sebastian bristled. "What nonsense are you spouting? Just because I took Fifi to have her leg looked at? Is that what this is about? You should watch fewer soap operas and read more books. It would be better for the baby." With that, he stood up and stalked into the bedroom. It was the first time Sebastian had ever gotten angry with me. No matter how upset he had been in the past, he had never taken it out on me. It must be because I had touched on his sore spot. I watched his retreating back and smiled. 8. The next afternoon, Felicity showed up at the house carrying a large bag of things. When she saw me, she poured a bowl of soup from a thermos she was carrying and held it out to me. "Clara, this is a special tonic I had someone bring from the hospital. It's very fresh. I even had the cook prepare it for you. I heard it's really good for pregnant women. You have to try it. The better you eat, the better the baby will grow. And please, don't be angry about what happened today." I looked at the so-called tonic in front of me. A thick layer of yellow fat floated on top, and underneath was a lump of bloody, unidentifiable meat. A wave of nausea washed over me. I instinctively pushed the bowl away and said coldly, "Take it away. I'm not drinking it." But Felicity acted as if she hadn't heard me. She kept pushing the soup toward me, even scooping some with a spoon and bringing it to my lips, her voice taking on a tearful tone. "If you won't drink it, does that mean you're still angry that I asked Sebastian to take me to the hospital yesterday? It was just a habit. If you don't like it, I won't ask him next time." I said I'm not drinking it. "Are you deaf?" My patience was completely gone. I shoved the bowl away from me. In an instant, hot soup splashed all over the floor, with a good amount spattering onto her dress. Felicity shrieked. Hearing the commotion, Sebastian rushed out of the bedroom. Seeing the chaotic scene, his face darkened. He demanded, "What are you two doing?" He immediately helped Felicity up, checked her over to make sure she was all right, and then turned to me. "Fifi was kind enough to bring you soup, and this is how you treat her. Why are you so petty?" He then took Felicity's arm and stormed out of the house. 9. Not long after they left, the housekeeper approached me with a troubled look and informed me that the cook, who was in the kitchen preparing dinner, had been sent home. "Madam, this was an order from Mrs. Stanton. There was nothing we could do. We're just servants, we have to follow orders. Please take care of yourself." I knew what this was. I had made her precious daughter cry. so this was her way of putting me in my place. She was trying to force me to bow my head and apologize. After all, I was alone and dependent on the Stanton family for my survival. But it was fine. I had already planned my escape. The application to erase my identity had been approved. I took out my phone and booked a flight. Then I hailed a car on a ride-sharing app, ready to head to the airport and finally leave this place of heartbreak behind. On the way to the airport, a message from Sebastian came through. Fifi hasn't stopped crying because of this. She's my sister, after all. When you hurt her like that, have you ever thought about how difficult it makes things for me, caught in the middle? Take the next couple of days to cool down. I'll come home when you've thought it through and are ready to apologize to her. You need to understand that in this world, no one is going to spoil you forever. I just ended the call, pulled out the SIM card, and tossed it out the car window. With the help of the airline staff, I boarded the plane. From that moment on, the person known as Clara Sawyer ceased to exist. 10. Meanwhile, a strange sense of panic began to gnaw at Sebastian. After they were married, apart from her initial volatile temper following the loss of her legs, Clara had never been so willful or emotional again. She understood his difficulties and made a conscious effort not to add to his burdens. She loved him too much to let him suffer any negativity because of her. But a week had passed since that day, and she hadn't contacted him. Tonight was Felicity's birthday. Every year, they held a dinner party for her. He had planned to use the opportunity for them to make amends, to make things easier in the future. Sebastian took out his phone and called the housekeeper. "How is the madam now? I want you to bring her to the Imperial Hotel for the party tonight." The housekeeper's voice was hesitant. "Well, the madam is not at the mansion." Hearing this, Sebastian's face darkened, anger rising in his chest. "Find her for me. I'd like to see where she thinks she can go." He had intended to give Clara a way out, an easy path to reconciliation, but she had refused it, even running away from home. It was ridiculous. A woman who could barely move on her own, where could she possibly go? It seemed he had been too lenient with her, making her think he couldn't live without her. 11. Inside the magnificently decorated hotel, the Stantons had invited nearly everyone from the upper echelons of society. The event was twofold: to celebrate Felicity's birthday and to find her a suitable husband. Felicity appeared in a wine-red strapless gown. Her eyes landed on Sebastian as he walked in, and she lifted her skirt to glide over to him, affectionately linking her arm with his. Sebastian stiffened and pulled his arm away. "Everyone's watching. Don't make a scene." Felicity pouted, displeased. "You're not afraid Clara will see, are you?" She scanned the room and, not seeing me, scoffed. "She's probably too scared to come, afraid of being upset. Come on, I'll introduce you to some new friends I've made." She started to pull Sebastian deeper into the crowd. Just then, a man in a courier uniform holding a gift box walked into the ballroom and headed straight for them. "Excuse me, are you Sebastian Stanton and Felicity Stanton? This is an urgent delivery from a Miss Clara Sawyer. Please sign for it." At the same time, the large screen that was supposed to be playing birthday wishes for Felicity suddenly switched to an intimate video of Sebastian and Felicity. "My dear Sebastian, I will only love you for the rest of my life. I don't want anyone else." In an instant, the guests erupted in an uproar. People stared at each other, their eyes wide with shock and disbelief, and a wave of whispers swept through the hall. "What is going on? They say the rich play dirty, but this is a whole new level. How shameless can you be? A brother and sister together, even if they're not blood-related, isn't that disgusting? I always thought Felicity Stanton was this innocent, pure girl. Who knew she was up to this behind the scenes? What a disgrace." No wonder I saw Clara Sawyer's comment on Felicity's social media post. "He certainly is a good brother." So that's what she meant. It looks like she knew all along. I bet she orchestrated this whole scene today, didn't she? Sebastian stood frozen, too stunned to react. When Felicity saw the video on the screen, her face contorted in panic. She shrieked, "Turn it off, turn it off." She let go of Sebastian's arm and scrambled frantically toward the stage, screaming hysterically. "Where did this come from? Turn it off," the technician, bewildered by the sudden chaos, muttered. "But this is the video you provided me with." Felicity had no time to argue. In a desperate frenzy, she yanked the power cord, and the image on the screen vanished. But when she turned around, she found every eye in the room fixed on her, filled with mockery and contempt. She rushed back to Sebastian's side, reaching for him, about to speak. "Sebastian, before she could finish, the courier asked again, "An urgent delivery from a Miss Clara Sawyer. Please sign for it." Sebastian stared at the box, speechless. For some reason, a terrible premonition washed over him. He was about to stop him, but before he could react, Felicity, still disoriented by the video, shoved the box the courier was holding. With a thud, the box fell to the floor, the lid popping open. Blood instantly seeped out onto the floor, and a horrifying, bloody mass was faintly visible inside. Felicity let out a piercing scream and reflexively jumped back. "Ah, what is that thing?" the courier said calmly. "Miss Sawyer said this is your child. She's returning it to you." He then pulled a small audio recorder from his pocket and pressed play. A recording began to fill the room. "Fifi wants a child of ours, but I can't bear for her to suffer. Clara's uterus is still functional, so let's just call it the last thing she can do for Fifi." Hearing this, Sebastian could no longer control himself. He lunged for the recorder, fumbling to press the stop button. But in his panic, he accidentally hit the volume up button instead, and the recording blared clearly for everyone to hear. "My God, I've seen it all now. Is this something a human being could do? This is worse than an animal incest is one thing, but to ruin someone's life to cover up your own depravity?" Mr. Stanton looks so distinguished, but it turns out he's nothing but a complete hypocrite. Isn't this basically murder? They should both be in jail, the two of them together. Sebastian's face went white, his hands trembling. He looked at the condemning stares all around him, and only one thought filled his mind. Clara knew everything he had done. What now? No wonder she wasn't at home. Had she already left? The thought sent a cold dread through him. Shaking off Felicity's hand, he started to bolt from the hall. But he had only taken a few steps when a cry for help rose from the crowd. Eleanor, unable to withstand the shock of what had just happened, had collapsed and fainted. The scene descended into chaos. Sebastian had no choice but to call for an ambulance and rush his mother to the hospital. Meanwhile, the scandalous events at the hotel spread like wildfire, quickly trending online and nearly crashing the servers. Netizens were furious. Sebastian Stanton's wife must have had the worst luck in 8 lifetimes to meet him. A promising ballet dancer ends up like this. You couldn't even write this stuff in a TV show. This is insane. The world of the rich is truly a dark place. Another day to be terrified of marriage. That woman's life is so tragic. It really proves you never know if the person sleeping next to you is a human or a monster. 12. At the hospital. When Eleanor woke up and saw Sebastian by her side, she immediately began to rail at him. "Sebastian, are you insane? There are so many women in the world, and you had to get involved with your own sister. Now it's a massive scandal. How are you going to clean up this mess? Is this how I raised you? After a scandal this huge, how are you going to keep your position as CEO of Stanton Corp?" The angry tirade filled the hospital room. Sebastian stood with his head bowed, his expression unreadable, not saying a word. Standing nearby, Felicity, unwilling to accept this, stepped forward to plead her case. "Mother, Sebastian and I are truly in love. Please, give us your blessing. I really can't live without him. Besides, you watched me grow up. Compared to Clara, I would be a much better wife for Sebastian." This only fueled Eleanor's rage. She glared at Felicity, her eyes burning. "You shut your mouth, you have the nerve to say that. I took you in, raised you like a princess. Not so you could seduce my son, you're pushing him into a pit of fire. How could you do this to us?" Felicity, having been spoiled by the Stantons for years, had forgotten her place as an adopted daughter. She retorted, finally saying what had been weighing on her heart for so long. "Mother, Sebastian and I aren't really brother and sister. He loves me, and I love him. Why can't we be together? Is it just because of what other people think?" Eleanor's face turned ashen at her words. Her chest heaved, and she pointed a trembling finger at Felicity. "Shut up, it was you, wasn't it? You seduced your brother, how could you be so shameless? You're just like your mother, a seductress who goes around charming everyone, not even sparing your own brother. I never should have been soft-hearted enough to adopt you. I gave you every luxury, every bit of status you have now is a gift from me, and in the end, you ruined my son," Felicity blurted out. "I wish you had never adopted me then, Sebastian, and I could have been together properly. You're the one who ruined my happiness." Hearing this, Eleanor's face went pale. She clutched her chest in pain. She couldn't imagine that the two children she had raised, the two she had been so proud of, could do something like this. But ultimately, she had raised them. Forcing down her pain, she said coldly, "There's no place for you in this family anymore. I'll have someone arrange to send you abroad. From now on, you're on your own." At these words, Felicity's face went white. She became agitated. "No, I don't want to go abroad. I'm not going. Why should I have to leave?" "We're in love." She turned and desperately grabbed Sebastian's arm, shaking it, hoping he would speak up for her. But Sebastian seemed to have lost his soul. He was completely unresponsive. He looked at the two women arguing, feeling nothing but exhaustion. He uttered coldly, "I only agreed to let Clara be a surrogate to fulfill your wish for a child. Now that the child is gone, it just means it wasn't meant to be. Mom is right. After what's happened, it's better for you to go abroad." With that, he yanked open the door to the room and prepared to leave. Felicity grabbed him in a panic, tears streaming from her eyes. "You promised you would take care of me for the rest of your life. How can you do this to me now? Don't you love me anymore?" Sebastian impatiently pushed her away and walked out the door without looking back. He had never imagined things would spiral this far. In his mind, he had only been trying to fulfill Felicity's wish, which was why he had agreed to her absurd request. He had thought that regardless of whether he and Clara had children, he would treat her well for the rest of her life. After all, she was his wife, and he had promised to care for her forever. But what had he done? He couldn't even begin to imagine the despair and pain Clara must have felt when she learned the truth. So much so that she chose to leave without a word. He began to regret his decisions, and a tide of remorse washed over him. 13. Sebastian rushed back to the villa. He pushed the door open to find the house just as it had been, except that the large wedding portrait that had once hung on the wall was gone. On the bedside table in the bedroom, a set of divorce papers lay quietly. Sebastian's hand trembled as he held them. He flipped to the last page. Clara had already signed her name. Regret and remorse churned in his chest. He couldn't accept the fact that Clara was gone. He slammed his fist on the bedside table. Suddenly, a red notebook fell from a hidden compartment. The yellowed pages showed that the notebook was old. It chronicled Clara's joys and sorrows. October 8, 2006, I met a boy who made my heart race today. His name is Sebastian Stanton. It's such a beautiful name. I heard his family is very wealthy. I feel so inadequate, I don't dare to go up and talk to him. November 9, 2006, Sebastian actually talked to me today. I'm so excited. July 28, 2010, the day before my ballet competition, I was in a car accident. The doctor told me I'll never be able to stand again. I feel like my world has ended. Even my parents have abandoned me. But I never expected that Sebastian would find me and say he wanted to marry me, to be with me forever. But this broken version of me, how can I ever be worthy of someone so dazzling? As much as I want to say yes, I forced myself to say no. I don't want to drag down the man I love. Isn't there a saying that the greatest love is letting go? But why does my heart hurt so much? September 3, 2010, I've started lashing out at Sebastian, yelling at him, trying to push him away. I'm even less worthy of him now, but he doesn't seem to mind at all. He never blames me, just keeps taking care of me. Suddenly, I don't have the heart to do it anymore. October 15, 2010, I agreed to be with Sebastian. He was so happy he almost cried. I think maybe this is fate's way of compensating me. It closed a door but opened a window. I'm even a little grateful for the car accident. If it hadn't happened, neither of us might have ever confessed the feelings we kept hidden in our hearts. June 9, 2013, after hundreds of IVF attempts, I'm finally pregnant. The process was painful, but when I think that in 10 months I'll have a child with Sebastian, I start to look forward to our future together. June 15, 2013, it was all a lie, all of it. He orchestrated my car accident. Even the baby in my belly, it turns out I was just a joke in his eyes. If that's the case, then I'll leave and let them have what they want. Sebastian's hands trembled as he held the diary. His eyes grew redder and he muttered to himself, "No, Clara, that's not it. I had already fallen in love with you." A fire of remorse threatened to consume him. He thought of everything he had done to Clara, and he wished he could go back in time and kill his former self to atone for what he had done. Suddenly, he slammed the diary down, grabbed his phone, and called his assistant, his voice trembling with urgency. "Have you found any trace of my wife?" The assistant's voice was hesitant. Mr. Stanton, we haven't found any information on her. I've checked all the major airlines, train stations, and ferry tickets as well as hotels. There's no trace of her. Could she still be in the city, just hiding somewhere? Keep looking. Find her no matter the cost. Sebastian barked his orders into the phone and then hung up. Suddenly, as if remembering something, he grabbed his car keys and rushed out. 14. Sebastian drove directly to a residential building on the outskirts of the city. As he was about to go upstairs, he saw Clara's father and mother leaving. When they saw Sebastian, their eyes lit up and they hurried over to him. "Son-in-law, what brings you here? Come on up and sit for a while." Sebastian looked at their scrutinizing gazes and suppressed his discomfort. "Has Clara been back in the last few days?" Mr. Sawyer paused, then shook his head, a hint of displeasure on his face. "No, that good-for-nothing girl hasn't been home in years. If we didn't go looking for her, she'd probably forget she even has us old folks." Then he asked tentatively, "Did you two have a fight? The next time I see her, I'll have to give her a good talking to. She's a grown woman, acting so willful. She lives off your family's money, and now she has the nerve to throw a tantrum." The news from the birthday party had been all over the top trending lists. It was impossible for Mr. and Mrs. Sawyer not to have seen it. They didn't seem to care whether their daughter had been wronged. They were only thinking about not losing the Stanton family, their cash cow. After all, it was normal for a man to have a woman on the side. As long as his wife was still Clara, it wasn't a big deal. Sebastian forced a smile, though he was already seething with impatience. He said politely, "I have something else to attend to, so I'll be going." Without waiting for a response, he walked straight to his car. How could he have forgotten? Clara had long since given up on her parents. They had abandoned her when she was disabled. Why would she return to a place that was never a home? He found her best friend's number in his phone and called. The moment the call connected, her friend unleashed a torrent of abuse. "Sebastian Stanton, you have the nerve to ask me where Clara is. I haven't even settled the score with you, and you dare to call me. I always knew that sister of yours was no good, always trying to sabotage Clara because her grades were better. But I never thought you were even worse, getting involved with your own sister and hurting Clara. Even if I knew where Clara was, which I don't, I would never tell a two-faced scumbag like you." After her tirade, she slammed the phone down. 15. Meanwhile, in her apartment. Felicity was confined to her home, her work suspended due to the vitriol she was receiving online. Suddenly, the apartment door opened, and two men in bodyguard uniforms walked in. Felicity froze, then screamed. "Who let you in? This is breaking and entering. I'm going to sue you," one of the bodyguards said mechanically, his face devoid of expression. "Miss Stanton, we are here on Mrs. Stanton's orders to help you pack for your trip abroad. Please don't make this difficult for us." Hearing this, Felicity's face went pale, her eyes filled with defiance. She hadn't thought Alina was serious about sending her abroad. If she left, everything she had now would be gone. "I said I'm not going. Get out, get out." The two bodyguards seemed not to hear her shouts. They exchanged a look and moved to grab her. Panicked, Felicity grabbed a nearby pillow and threw it at them. While they were momentarily distracted, she made a dash for the door. The bodyguards reacted quickly and chased after her. But as Felicity burst out of the building, a black car sped toward her. It was about to hit her. At the last second, the driver slammed on the brakes. The tires screeched against the pavement. The furious driver was about to stick his head out and yell when Felicity, terrified by the near miss, fainted. When she woke up, she was in a hospital. A doctor walked in just then and, seeing she was awake, scolded her. "How could you be so careless? Didn't you know you were pregnant? You almost lost the baby." Felicity was stunned for a moment. When the news sank in, an unstoppable smile spread across her face. She was pregnant now. Even heaven was on her side. This meant she wouldn't have to go abroad. She had a reason to be with Sebastian, openly and rightfully. She was sure that with this child, the Stantons and Sebastian would have no reason to send her away. She slipped past the bodyguards at the door and took a taxi straight to Sebastian's office building. 16. Felicity went to Sebastian with the pregnancy report, hoping to use the child to win him back. As she walked into his office, she was lost in a fantasy. With the baby, and with Clara gone, she was sure that Arthur and Alina would accept the child for the family's sake. Then she and Sebastian could finally be together. But when she reached the office, Sebastian merely glanced at the report and uttered a few chilling words, his eyes filled with scorn. "Are you sure that child is mine?" Felicity's smile froze. She had never expected this reaction from him. "Sebastian, what are you saying? You're doubting me," she said in disbelief. "If it's not your child, whose could it be? Didn't you always say you wanted a child of ours? Why are you acting like this now that I'm actually pregnant?" Sebastian let out a cold laugh. "Have you forgotten? I had a vasectomy years ago. How could you possibly be carrying my child?" Felicity's face tensed. She spoke quickly. "Even with a vasectomy, it's not 100% guarantee. Isn't this report proof enough?" But Sebastian refused to believe her. To him, Felicity was just grasping at straws. She had always been a person who would do anything to get what she wanted. This pregnancy was probably another one of her lies. He didn't want to deal with her anymore. He was about to call his secretary to have her removed. But Felicity wasn't going to give up. She began to cry. "Do you know what I just went through? I was being thrown out by the bodyguards your mother sent, and I was almost hit by a car. I was rushed to the hospital, and when I woke up, the doctor told me I was pregnant. The first thing I did was run here to tell you, but how can you treat me like this? Last time at the hospital, when your mother said she was sending me abroad, you didn't help me. Fine. But now, you don't even have a single word of concern for me. You just immediately assume the child isn't yours. Is that what you think of me? That I'm that kind of woman?" Felicity grabbed his arm, tears streaming down her face. Sebastian shook her off, his eyes filled with impatience. "We grew up together. I know exactly what kind of person you are." Felicity laughed loudly, though her eyes were filled with tears. "Fine. Since you don't believe me, I'll go to the hospital and get a paternity test to prove it to you." With that, she covered her face, grabbed her bag, and ran out the door. 17. Unsurprisingly, the test results showed that the child was indeed Sebastian's. But when Felicity presented the report to Sebastian, expecting a satisfying response, she was met with disappointment. After looking at the results, Sebastian just uttered two cold words: "Get rid of it." Felicity stared at him in disbelief, her eyes filled with shock and rage. "Sebastian, what are you saying? Yesterday, I brought you a pregnancy test, and you said you didn't believe the child was yours. And now, the proof is right in front of you, written in black and white on this report. The child is yours, and this is how you treat me?" Sebastian's face remained impassive. He seemed annoyed, his brow furrowed. "Whether it is or isn't, getting rid of the child is better for both of us. If the child were born, Clara would be even less likely to forgive him, and the Stanton family would never allow this child to exist. No, why? This is my child. I won't let anyone harm him." Felicity's voice broke, and she began to plead. "Are you worried about the rumors? I know you're worried about me and the baby, but I'm not as fragile as you think. The gossip will die down. It doesn't matter what people think, as long as we love each other. I've thought it through. Being able to have a child for the man I love is a wonderful thing. I don't need someone else to do it for me. I'm willing to have your child, even if it means giving up my dance career for you." Felicity's tender words did not move Sebastian. He pulled his arm free from her grasp and said coldly, "Get rid of it. This child should not have been brought into this world." Felicity froze. She couldn't believe that after everything she had said, he was still so ruthless. What did that make her? "What do you mean, should not have been brought into this world? Have you forgotten what you said before? You said you only wanted to be with me, that you would only love me, that you dreamed of having my child." "Say something," she shook him, her eyes burning with questions and anger. Sebastian was feeling incredibly agitated. He pushed her hand away and was about to say something when his phone rang. His assistant's voice came through the line. "Mr. Stanton, we've found information on the madam's whereabouts." Hearing this, Sebastian shot to his feet, his voice filled with an uncontrollable excitement. "Where? Send me the address immediately, and book me the next flight. I'm going to find her now." As he spoke, he grabbed his car keys and jacket and headed for the door, completely forgetting about Felicity standing beside him. Seeing this, Felicity's eyes filled with rage. After everything that had happened, with Clara gone, she could not let Sebastian go and find her. She would absolutely not allow Clara to reappear and disrupt the life she wanted. She rushed to stop him, her voice pleading. "Sebastian, don't you love me? Why are you still going after Clara? She's already left you. And she knows everything you did to her. She'll never forgive you or come back with you. Why are you setting yourself up for humiliation?" Her words finally reminded Sebastian that there was someone else in the room. He gave her a cold look, then pressed a button on his desk console to summon his assistant. He ordered him to take Felicity to the hospital for an abortion. The assistant, receiving the order, moved to take Felicity's arm and lead her out of the office. But Felicity suddenly yanked her arm away. "Get away from me, Sebastian. This child is mine too, not just yours. You don't get to decide. I will not give up this child." After shouting, Felicity grabbed the pregnancy report and ran out. She refused to believe that with this child, no one in the Stanton family would stand up for her. 18. But even though she had been the Stantons' adopted daughter and had lived with them for over 20 years, she had severely underestimated them. Perhaps in the past, her plan might have worked. But now that the scandal was so public, how could the Stantons, a family at the pinnacle of high society, allow this ugly affair to remain in the spotlight? Felicity took the pregnancy report to Arthur Stanton, hoping he would see justice done for her. After all, he had always doted on her. She believed that with this child, they would have to accept her, and she could finally be with Sebastian openly. But to her shock, the moment Arthur saw the report, he slapped her across the face. "Shameless, you still have the nerve to come to me?" he roared. The force of the blow snapped Felicity's head to the side. She stood frozen, staring at him in disbelief. She had never imagined that Arthur, who had always cherished her, would hit her. "I will absolutely not allow this illegitimate offspring to exist in this world, even if he has Stanton blood. As long as he exists, 1,000 pairs of eyes will be laughing at me. I cannot let you keep this child." He picked up his phone and dialed a number. A moment later, the housekeeper entered. "Send her to the hospital for an abortion." The housekeeper relayed the order, and the bodyguards waiting outside came in and immediately grabbed Felicity. As she was being dragged out, she screamed, "Father, please, spare me and the baby. This is your grandson. How can you be so cruel?" But Arthur ignored her. After Felicity was taken away, silence returned. 19. Meanwhile, Sebastian, his heart racing, floored the accelerator on his way to the airport. He couldn't wait to see Clara. However, as the car rounded a curve, it swerved violently. A gift box he had placed on the passenger seat, an apology gift for Clara, suddenly fell to the floor. Sebastian instinctively bent down to pick it up, not noticing a large truck hurtling toward him. With a deafening crash, the two vehicles collided, the sound of screeching metal filling the air. When Arthur and Alina received the news of Sebastian's accident, they rushed to the hospital. Fortunately, Sebastian's life was not in danger. However, his lower body was severely injured, and he had lost his ability to have children forever. Hearing this, Alina felt the world go dark. She swayed and would have fallen if Arthur hadn't been there to support her. Was this the end of the Stanton family line? Suddenly, as if remembering something, Arthur fumbled for his phone. With trembling fingers, he dialed a number, his voice urgent. "Is Felicity's child still there?" The bodyguard on the other end replied respectfully, "She was just taken into the operating room. They've administered the anesthesia and are about to begin." Arthur commanded, his voice heavy with an unchallengeable authority, "Tell the doctors to stop. The procedure is canceled." The bodyguard was surprised but didn't dare to question the order. He followed instructions, and just like that, Felicity's child was saved. But the Stantons were only planning to keep the child and get rid of the mother. They intended to send her abroad after the birth, never allowing her to see her child. After all, they only cared about the Stanton bloodline and their family's reputation. Even if Felicity was carrying the family's only heir, after everything that had happened, she could never securely occupy the position of Mrs. Stanton. But she wasn't a fool. Once she realized she held the trump card, she knew how to use it. She demanded that the Stantons hold a grand wedding for her, to welcome her into the family with full honors. She wanted everyone who had ever mocked her behind her back to see that she was no longer the other woman, but the legitimate Mrs. Stanton. Arthur and Alina had no choice but to agree to her demands. But to their surprise, when Sebastian regained consciousness and learned of the plan, he refused. "I will not marry Felicity. I will only ever have one wife, and that is Clara Sawyer." Hearing this, a fire of rage burned in Alina's heart. "Why are you still talking about that woman? If it weren't for her, our family wouldn't be in this situation." but she seemed to have forgotten that the most innocent person in this whole affair was Clara. If not for her son, none of this would have happened. She tried to reason with him again. Felicity is using the baby to threaten you. If you don't agree, you'll never have a child of your own. You know how large our family business is. How can we not have an heir? Do you want your father to have to find another woman to have a child? At this, Sebastian's face showed no emotion. He felt this must be his karma. He had deceived Clara, claiming he was infertile, making her suffer through so many rounds of IVF, only for her to end up carrying his and Felicity's child. Now, his lie had become a reality. He really had lost the ability to have children. Wasn't this the definition of reaping what you sow? He sat silently on the hospital bed for a long time. Just as Alina thought he had come to his senses, he repeated, "I will not marry Felicity, and she is not worthy of bearing my child." As luck would have it, Felicity, who had come to visit him, overheard these words. She stormed in, her face contorted with rage, and demanded, "Sebastian Stanton, what do you mean by that? Do you hate me that much? Have you forgotten that you were the one who said only I was worthy of bearing your child? And now I'm not. Do you believe I'll go and abort this child right now and leave you without an heir?" Hearing this, Alina rushed forward to intervene. The most important thing now was the baby in Felicity's womb. It was the only heir to the Stanton family, as much as she hated to admit it. Sebastian looked up, his gaze fixed on Felicity, and said coldly, "Go ahead and abort it. I will not have this child of yours." At this, Felicity turned and threw herself into Alina's arms, sobbing, "Mother, look at him, he doesn't want this child, I might as well get rid of it, so I don't have to deal with his disgust and hatred." Alina shot Sebastian a glare and tried to comfort Felicity. "He's just saying that out of anger. Don't listen to him." Then she turned to Sebastian, urging him, "Sebastian, aren't you going to comfort Fifi?" Alina reached out to pat Sebastian, but he didn't react. Fearing they would start fighting again and do something rash with terrible consequences, Alina gently coaxed Felicity out of the room, whispering reassurances. "Don't worry. Sebastian won't reject this child. He will treat you and the baby well." 20. As Sebastian was recovering and nearing his discharge from the hospital, he had someone summon Felicity. Felicity thought he had finally come around and had a change of heart. She even took the time to dress up and put on makeup before coming to the hospital. But to her shock, as she approached the hospital room, several bodyguards quickly surrounded her. Before she could react, she saw a doctor and abortion instruments already prepared nearby. Realizing what was happening, Felicity turned to run, but she was grabbed by the large bodyguards and pinned to the hospital bed. Felicity struggled with all her might, her limbs flailing, but she was no match for their strength. All she could do was scream, let me go, let me go." She looked at Sebastian, who stood nearby with a cold, stern expression, and shrieked, "Sebastian, do father and mother know you're doing this? They won't let you do this, and how can you do this to me? I'm carrying your child, are you insane? If you get rid of this child, you will never have a child of your own for the rest of your life." She desperately hoped her words would move him, but she had forgotten. Sebastian was not an impulsive man. He had already made up his mind. Even if he never had children, he could not have Felicity's child. This was one way he could avenge Clara. Sebastian's gaze was calm. He glanced at the doctor beside him and said coolly, "Begin." Felicity saw the impassive look on his face and panicked, her voice turning to a desperate plea. "Sebastian, have you forgotten? You promised you would be good to me for the rest of your life, that you would take care of me forever. Have you forgotten? I'm begging you, please let me keep this child, okay? I promise, if you don't want to see this child, I will take him far away so he never appears before you. Please, I'm begging you, spare us." She didn't understand. How could the man who had once loved her and protected her so fiercely change so completely? Was it because of Clara? No, that was impossible. She refused to believe it. Sebastian looked down at her and spoke slowly, his voice laced with cruelty and finality. "Our relationship was a mistake from the very beginning. I gave you a chance before. I wanted to run away with you, to leave all this behind. But you were unwilling to let my parents know, afraid that if you offended them, you would lose everything you had. You didn't believe that I could support you without the Stanton family name. So you kept me on a string, using me to achieve your goals." He paused, his expression growing even colder. But once the truth was revealed, it was destined that we could never be together. Hearing this, Felicity screamed, "Why? Why can't we be together? There are no obstacles between us anymore. Father and mother have already agreed to let us be together, and Clara is gone. Why can't we be together?" Her tone shifted, and she stared at him, desperate for him to deny it. "Have you fallen in love with Clara?" Without a moment's hesitation, Sebastian met her gaze and said firmly, "Yes, I fell in love with her a long time ago. Before I even realized it, I was already in love with her." Felicity reacted as if she had heard the world's greatest joke. She threw her head back and laughed, and as she laughed, tears streamed from her eyes. "Ha ha ha, Sebastian, are you kidding me? You're telling me you love Clara? You love her, so you caused her to lose her legs and never be able to stand again, to be torn from the stage she adored. You love her, so you lied to her about being infertile and made her go through countless rounds of IVF. You love her, so you let her carry our child in her belly. Your love is truly terrifying. Do you really think, after everything, that she would ever take you back? She probably wants to kill you, and you still think you can go find her and be with her, in your dreams." She began to spiral, her words turning into a vicious tirade. "Men are all pathetic. You don't appreciate what you have until it's gone, and then you're filled with regret. But it's a shame. You missed your chance. There's no going back." Sebastian finally snapped. He lunged forward and grabbed Felicity by the throat, hissing, "Shut your mouth!" Instantly, Felicity's face turned a deep red. Her hands instinctively clawed at his, but it was futile. Just as she was about to lose consciousness, thinking she was going to die, Sebastian released her with a look of disgust. He took a step back, his eyes like ice, and threw one last cold phrase over his shoulder as he strode out the door. "Do it!" No matter how much Felicity screamed, Sebastian acted as if he heard nothing. He didn't look back. The anesthetic was slowly injected into Felicity's body. As the drug spread, she lost the strength to struggle, only able to watch as the cold instruments moved closer, ruthlessly removing the fetus from her womb. However, just as the procedure was about to be completed, she began to hemorrhage massively. To save her life, the doctors had to perform a hysterectomy. When she woke up in the hospital and learned what had happened, she couldn't accept it and had a complete breakdown. Hatred began to fester in her heart. 21. When Arthur and Alina learned that Sebastian had forced Felicity to have an abortion, they were heartbroken and reprimanded him, but there was nothing they could do. The child was gone and could not be brought back. So when Felicity came to them seeking justice, they simply gave her a sum of money and sent her away from the villa. For them, their previous actions had been a calculated decision made for the sake of the child. But now that the child was gone, there was no need to pretend anymore. No matter how much Felicity pleaded, they showed not an ounce of mercy. In their eyes, all the troubles the Stanton family was now facing were because of her. They could not tolerate her presence in their lives any longer. 22. Because of this affair, Felicity's reputation was in tatters. She became a reviled homewrecker and was cast out of the Stanton family. The championship title she had won was revoked, and her spot in upcoming competitions was given to someone else. Felicity went to Sebastian's office building, trying to see him, but she was stopped by security. As she was about to wait for him by the side of the road, a passerby recognized her and started throwing rotten eggs and vegetable leaves at her. The once pampered heiress had become a pariah. Her white dress was covered in filth. Felicity couldn't stop herself from screaming back at the crowd. "What did I do wrong? I just fell in love with a man. He was willing to do those things for me. That was his choice. It's not like I forced him. I bet you're all just jealous that I'm beautiful and can't stand to see me happy." In the ensuing chaos, Felicity lost her balance and tumbled uncontrollably down a flight of stairs. She rolled down more than a dozen steps, each impact a sickening thud of bone against stone, before landing heavily in the middle of the road. At that moment, a car, unable to brake in time, ran directly over her legs. As a horrifying, broken scream pierced the air. The driver was frozen in shock, only managing to call for an ambulance after what felt like an eternity. Perhaps this was karma. The wheel of fate had turned. Felicity's injuries were so severe that, to save her life, both of her legs had to be amputated. Now, just like Clara before her, she would have to spend the rest of her life in a wheelchair. When Felicity woke up and learned the cruel reality, she had a complete breakdown, lashing out and injuring medical staff, screaming for them to pay with their lives. The doctors were forced to give her a strong sedative. For safety reasons, they transferred her to a psychiatric hospital. 23. When my best friend called me, her voice was filled with a grim satisfaction. Felicity blames Sebastian for her amputated legs, so she hired someone to run him over. He didn't die, but he's not much better off. He's permanently disabled and sterile. Sebastian is completely finished, and the Stanton family is on the verge of bankruptcy after being caught for fraudulent accounting. It's true what they say, what goes around comes around. That's what they get for not acting like human beings. And to think I used to have such a high opinion of him. I thought he was the one for you, and then it turned into this. At this point, my friend's voice broke. If I had just stopped you from getting in that car, if I hadn't dragged you to that basketball game to see Sebastian, you never would have met him, and none of this would have happened. It's all my fault. I smiled and comforted her. Silly girl, none of that was something you could have prevented. If Sebastian Stanton wanted to harm me, he would have had a foolproof plan. If I had avoided it once, there would have just been a next time. Besides, I'm fine now, aren't I? The doctor said my legs will recover soon, and I'll be able to get back on stage. So don't you worry. It was a stroke of luck that I had discovered Sebastian's plan when I did, got the abortion, and came here for treatment so early. Otherwise, I might never have been able to stand again. My friend gradually stopped crying as I spoke. You're right, I'm so glad your legs can recover. Otherwise, even with Sebastian a cripple, I would have hunted him down with a knife. But speaking of which, his life right now is probably worse than death. Yes, Sebastian Stanton was now a stray dog. I hadn't been deliberately following the news from back home, but the story was so explosive that it dominated the headlines for days. It was all about the Stantons. The internet had crucified them. Everyone said that what was happening to Sebastian now was his just desserts. But none of that had anything to do with me anymore. I had put it all behind me and started fresh. Before we hung up, my friend said wistfully, "When I get a vacation, I'll come and see you." I smiled and replied, "I'll be waiting." 24. Years later, with my breathtaking skill, I won a major international ballet award. The applause in the theater was deafening. Clutching a bouquet of flowers and a cake someone had handed me, I walked out of the venue alongside Leo Lynch. "Clara, your favorite orchestra is performing in town tomorrow. I bought tickets. Would you like to go?" Leo was a student of my mentor, a senior from my academy. I knew he had feelings for me, but after everything I had been through, I had a new perspective on relationships. I wouldn't let one scumbag convince me that all men were the same. That wouldn't be fair to me or to anyone else. So, who knew what the future held? The best thing to do was to live well in the present. As for everything else, I would leave it to time. As we were standing outside waiting for a car, I saw a man by the trash cans outside the venue. He was stooped, with graying hair, and walked with a limp. He seemed to be rummaging through the trash, looking for food. Just as I was about to call out and offer him the cake in my hands, he seemed to sense my gaze. He glanced up in my direction, then quickly looked down in a panic and scurried away. I paused for a moment, and Leo, noticing my strange behavior, asked me what was wrong. I shook my head. The man's profile looked a little like Sebastian. The Stanton family had gone bankrupt. Sebastian had gone to prison for his crimes, and after he got out, no one in any industry would hire him. The once favored son of fortune had fallen. So it was true what they said. The wheel of fate turns for all, and heaven spares no one. But what did that have to do with me? They had brought all of this upon themselves. On the other side of the street, Sebastian quickly fled to a place where no one could see him. He didn't know if Clara had recognized him. He had no face to show her anymore, and he didn't want her to see him in such a pathetic state. He was like a rat scurrying in the gutter, secretly watching her life from afar. He saw Clara in her magnificent gown, with a kind and attentive man by her side. Everything that had happened was his retribution. If he hadn't hurt her in the beginning, he might have been the one by her side now. But it was too late. He could barely support himself now, surviving by scavenging through trash. He had brought it all on himself. The only thing he could do for Clara now was to never appear in her life again, to never disturb her peace.